After decades of debate, this month the fate of the policy known as affirmative action rests with the highest court in the land. Rita Braver examines the arguments and the enormity of what's at stake.
What do we do when affirmative action is under attack?
Stand up, fight back!
Affirmative action has helped boost the number of Black, Latinx, and other minorities who are underrepresented at prestigious schools. But now those racial preferences may be prohibited.
End race in admissions.
End race in admissions!
In large part due to the efforts of this man.
The equal rights provision of our 14th Amendment basically gets to the point that people should not be treated differently because of their race or ethnicity.
You also say it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
It is. The opportunities must be the same regardless of your race or ethnicity.
Edward Bloom, who's retired from a job in finance and living in Tallahassee, Florida, is not a lawyer. He is founder and president of Students for Fair Admissions and acknowledges starting the group to challenge affirmative action in colleges. The Supreme Court is now considering cases he brought targeting the University of North Carolina, the nation's oldest public university, and Harvard, the oldest private college. Bloom says his group has 22,000 members, but none are identified by name in either court case.
Well, in the world of social media, it is no surprise that 17 and 18-year-old kids do not want their names made public.
Bloom has previously spearheaded two cases in which the Supreme Court struck down voting policies designed to help racial groups, particularly African American and Latinx voters who've endured prior discrimination. But he lost a 2016 case in which he backed Abigail Fisher.
I don't believe that students should be treated differently based on their race.
Who unsuccessfully challenged racial consideration in admissions at the University of Texas. But today's Supreme Court is far more conservative.
Were you just determined to keep bringing cases until you got the court to agree with you?
Legal advocacy requires a long-term commitment.
There are, in fact, 9 states that have enacted bans on racial preferences in state colleges, with some reporting a drop in African American and Latinx admissions at top institutions. Affirmative action advocates say a nationwide ban would be disastrous.
Affirmative action is really trying to treat everyone equally, recognizing that certain groups have been marginalized over the centuries.
Now a professor at Loyola University New Orleans College of Law, Mitchell Crusto grew up in segregated Louisiana.
Most of the restaurants in town did not serve black people. Water fountains were segregated, so there was a white-only and a black-only water fountain. The Woolworths department store, you could not have counter service if you were black.
He is a descendant of generations of enslaved people and forebears who faced prejudice after emancipation.
So a lot of the legacy of discrimination in housing, in employment, meant that my family was set back century after century.
Even after the Supreme Court mandated school desegregation,
most of your own schooling was in segregated Catholic schools here in New Orleans.
Elementary and high school, yes.
He was a top student, and also, he acknowledges, an affirmative action beneficiary in 1971.
You knew when you applied to Yale that they were interested in you, not just as a student, but because they wanted to bring in more African American students.
Absolutely.
But he also points out,
race is just one aspect. I wasn't accepted into Yale because I'm black. I was accepted into Yale because of all the other things that I am as a person, of which I'm also African American.
You graduated magna cum laude.
Yes, thank you.
And you were admitted to Yale Law School.
Yes, thank you.
And Crusto argues that the Supreme Court should uphold its previous rulings that colleges have a genuine interest in including students from different racial groups.
For all students who are at a university, having a diverse campus of individuals with different backgrounds add to the educational goal of the university.
For his part, Edward Bloom, a descendant of Holocaust survivors, contends that when colleges have considered ethnic backgrounds of applicants, it has hurt certain groups.
Back in the 1920s, it's well documented by dozens of historians that Harvard had policies in place to discriminate against Jews. Fast forward now to the 1990s and 2000s, we believe that Harvard has policies that diminish the likelihood that high-achieving Asians are being admitted.
In fact, Harvard recently announced that nearly 30% of those admitted this year are Asian American, more than 4 times the representation in the total U.S. population. Still, some Asian Americans are taking a stand against affirmative action plans that tend to help other minorities.
Even if tomorrow they decide to give preference to Asians, I'll be just as opposed, because the idea is that ideally we should all be treated equally, and there really should be a level playing field for all of us.
Rutvij Hole, whose parents were born in India, is the founder of Americans for Equality Political Action Committee. A straight-A student in Irvine, California, Hole was just admitted to one of the nation's top schools, Stanford University. And yet... Did you apply to any Ivy League schools?
I did. I applied to all of them except for Harvard.
And did you get into any of them?
Nope.
No. Do you have a feeling that maybe racial preferences might have had something to do with that?
Yes, I mean, to me, look, I look at the data, right? I'm not going off of a feeling, because the college admission process has been very good for me, but I think everyone has to acknowledge that there is a level of discrimination that occurs.
I think this case has the potential to really pit Asian Americans against other minorities, and I don't want that to happen. I think we should all, understand what other people have gone through and support them.
Chelsea Wong, a Harvard sophomore, is co-president of the Harvard-Radcliffe Asian American Association. She participated in a pro-affirmative action demonstration before the Supreme Court heard arguments on the cases last fall. There was also an Asian American anti-affirmative action demonstration, underscoring how divisive the issue is among Americans of all races. But Wong argues that it's a question of basic fairness.
You know what? I wish we didn't have to have affirmative action. I think we have to have it because all of the different, compounding forms of inequality that affect someone's life before they even apply for college call for something that accounts for those factors.
Still, Edward Bloom of Students for Fair Admissions believes there are other ways to get a diverse student body, even though
this is not news to you, that some people think your actions over the years have showed that you're racist or bigoted in some way. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that's an easy, sort of intellectually lazy way of making an argument. Let's have a debate about the policy.
If these policies go away, will it not just advantage Asian American applicants, but maybe also white applicants?
It's unclear who this is going to advantage. It's going to be up to Harvard. It's going to be up to UNC to change their policies to make them, first, colorblind. It's an important, that's the goal. Make them colorblind.
But with many legal experts predicting that the Supreme Court will strike down affirmative action, advocates like law professor Mitchell Krusto are worried that decades of progress for underserved minorities will be set back.
If the Supreme Court decides to ban the use of race, I think they'll go down in history as being one of the most conservative, reactionary, white supremacist Supreme Courts that we've ever seen.